action. Jonah, please let me know when we are live on the YouTubes. Looks like we might be. Hi, YouTube. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Lurie and Your Favorite Show experience. I hope everyone is doing well. Hope you're doing well. Lots to get into today. I think the AI bubbling is bubbling and about to bust. It's bubblicious. The AI bubble is bubblicious. According to y'all's president, Donald Trump, he says, if you broke, it's a hoax. So, take all your broke ass feelings. It's an illusion and do with them what you will. And I guess I don't feel like I should have to say this, but because we're Americans, I will. No one gets a pass on murder. You don't get a pass on murder. Let's get into the conversation we have to have today. Now, I just last week was talking about artificial intelligence and the harms that it causes to the Black community. I think the topic was something like AI got Black communities living dangerously, something like that. I be trying to be cute with the titles. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I was just last week talking about this. I'm kind of kicking myself because I felt like, damn, I should have talked about this sooner. I was a little frustrated because sometimes, these stories sort of sit in the ether for a little bit. But my job is not to break news. I want to analyze news, which means I often have to take my time, make sure I'm reading the articles and getting as up to speed as I need to be. So if I had it my way, if I had it to do all over again, I would have had this conversation about artificial intelligence and the harm that it causes to Black communities weeks ago, maybe even months ago. But I guess all things happen when they're supposed to because, iHeartRadio, as you may know, a phenomenal player in the music industry, they basically have said that they are no longer going to be or I don't know if they're saying no longer. They are committing to not playing artificial intelligence music, AI music, or to use AI-generated personalities. And they're committing this to their staff. They're committing to this to the public. They have now included the phrase "guaranteed human" in their marketing packages. And according to Tom Pullman, who's the company's programming chief, he says, we don't use AI-generated personalities. We don't play AI music that features synthetic vocalists pretending to be human. This is a very good thing. He says the podcasts we publish are also guaranteed human. And now all of the radio station DJs are going to be including the phrase guaranteed human as part of their on-air hourly disclosure. So you know how when we come back from a commercial break, I have to say, you're listening to Lurie Daniel Favors. That's the name of the show, the Lurie Daniel Favors Show here on SiriusXM's Urban View, where talk empowers and becomes action. That's the on-air disclosure, right? Those are part of the things that we have to say whenever we're coming back from commercial break. Well, now if you're on iHeartRadio, it's going to also include the phrase guaranteed human. I am also a guaranteed human. So in case you were wondering, I am not AI generated. So there's that. But according to Leanne Furtick, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, who is the company's president, she said that consumers are not just looking for content, they're looking for connection. And in a world of tech overload, consumers are searching for something real. I think this is very true. And I'm really glad to see this because it has felt to me like AI is a big ass bubbly bubble. And the bubbleliciousness is making its way. And so to pretend like we can move the entire economy to this AI tech bro sort of reality, dude, where everything's sort of virtual and everything is sort of, tech and AI, that's a scary consideration. And it's gotten increasingly worrisome because if you are in the industry in any way, shape, or form, the fact that you can now do whole ass movies where it looks so real. As I said this in the podcast, which you guys will get a chance to listen to tonight, the podcast is called Lurie Breaks It Down, available anywhere you get your podcast. I'm old enough to remember like a couple months ago, when people were like, we got to get better at detecting the fakes in AI. And, my mom is of a certain age. And so I'm like, how do I make sure that my mom knows information so that she, is not getting snookered in by AI? How do I make sure that my kids and my husband, how do I make sure that we're able to spot the markers? And before the fingers would look all janky. Like you would have 10 fingers on one hand or like the eyes it's weird. Now, that's not really an issue. And considering the fact that artificial intelligence is largely bubblicious, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, it has seemed to me really ludicrous, this idea that we could move entire industries, entire economies into this system that only produces replicas of everybody else's collectively held knowledge. In addition to the fact that, there's no fresh water. If you need an AI data center, you're going to have way higher electricity bills because the AI data centers that power artificial intelligence suck up all the energy. You're going to have far more sickness and disease because they also pollute the air. So it's like, if you could give me something that, as a result of my using AI, that's going to be worth me giving up fresh water, cheaper electric prices, and clean air, well, then I might be interested. Like if you told me that as a result of me giving up fresh water, clean air, and lower electric bills, you were going to solve human hunger. Right? You were going to eradicate poverty. I mean, I kind of like fresh air and clean water, but if you told me that nobody would be poor and nobody would be hungry, I might be willing to have a conversation. But if you're telling me I got to give up clean water, I got to give up fresh air, I got to give up affordable electric prices, and all you're going to do is make my PowerPoints glossier, Baby, like, what is we doing? What are we talking about? Now, AI is still a part of the iHeartRadio or iHeartMedia reality. They say that they use AI-powered productivity and distribution tools to help scale their business operations. They say they use them for scheduling, audience insights, data analysis, workflow automation. I'm like, that's just a souped-up Google. We don't need to be going through the sacrificing of all the things that people need to be a human in order for you to get a souped up Google. But who am I? I'm just a real life human radio host and a lawyer who runs a whole ass law center. What do I know? You know what? Don't listen to me. Don't listen to me, y'all. Let's listen to somebody who knows things more than me. Let's go to IBM's CEO. IBM's CEO, Arvind Krishna, basically just told the artificial intelligence community, your math don't math and you are some bullshit. Now, he did not say it in quite that way, to be sure. I just want to be clear. That's not a direct quote. That's a Lurieism interpreting what he was saying. But basically, he just did some back of the envelope math out loud on a podcast called Decoder and kind of like destroyed the entire mythology around artificial intelligence. Arvind Krishna tells the host of Decoder, $8 trillion of CapEx means that you need roughly $800 billion of profit just to pay for the interest. Just to pay for the interest. Now, sometimes when you read financial news, if you're not in the financial industry, there are words and terms that they use that you may or may not understand. I am not a financial industry player, but I just study the news. I study finance. I invest in things. And so I readily look up words I don't understand. There was a time where I did not know what CapEx meant. And if you just read this really quickly and you didn't know what CapEx meant, then it might not make as much sense. So let's break this down so we're all on the same page. Because one thing Lurie does break it down. Now, CapEx is a phrase that really stands for the term capital expenditure. Now, capital expenditures, and yes, I know if you're a finance person, you know all this. You could do this in your sleep, but we ain't you, okay, baby? So give us a chance. Capital expenditures it's funds or money that a company is spending to basically acquire, to upgrade physical assets like buildings, machinery, or to maintain. Even if you're not acquiring or upgrading, if you just want to invest in the long-term sustainability of your machinery, your buildings, your technology, and these things are considered an investment because when you invest in capital expenditures, the benefit is going to redound to you for years into the future if you do it properly. Now, the challenge that we have here is that when we hear Arvind Krishna say that $8 trillion of CapEx, what he's saying is it's going to cost $8 trillion to build out the AI data centers and all of the infrastructure to support AI technologies. But he says if you need $8 trillion of capital expenditures, you're going to have to at least have an $800 billion in profit just to pay the interest on the loans. Because remember what I talked about in that podcast episode, not even the podcast episode, on air, like a couple of weeks ago. Or was it last week? It was last week. Time is a flat circle. Remember I was talking about how basically we have a situation where the major AI players are selling the AI products. But because the people purchasing the products can't afford them, they are also giving loans to the companies that are buying the AI products. And so it's like this circle jerk of like 7 main companies that are basically buying and lending to each other. And now they have to lend to each other more money just to pay the interest on the first round of loans that they had already received. This shit is not sustainable. Okay. I might have been born at night, but it damn sure was not last night and it wasn't on any night of this year. This shit ain't sustainable. But again, you ain't got to listen to me. Listen to Arvind Krishna. He says that AI companies are spending billions of dollars on data centers and basically the math doesn't work. And when you think about it, it really doesn't. According to the podcast, Krishna is basically concluding that there is no mathematically acceptable way that these companies are ever going to make enough money to justify the expenditures on the data centers. And he's using today's numbers because, as he rightly says, everything in the future is just purely speculation. But if it takes $80 billion to get 1 gigabyte's worth of data center, think about these numbers. $80 billion for 1 gigawatt data center. He says that's today's number. If you're going to commit to 20 to 30 gigawatts, that's one company, that's $1.5 trillion of capital expenditures. You're going to have to also, in the next 5 years, replace everything because this shit has a very short shelf life. And so you've got to use all of your expenditures. You got to use up all the data and all the value within 5 years because after 5 years, you're going to have to throw it away and refill the data center. You've got investors like Michael Burry, again, who knows way more about this shit than I do. He's basically like looking at NVIDIA like, baby, like, what is y'all doing? He's basically like, no, what we're not doing is, NVIDIA is a disappointment. OpenAI is a disappointment. He's not impressed. And major players are now selling off their stocks and selling off their ownership components of these industries. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So he says again, yeah, because of this, you're going to need $800 billion of profit just to pay off interest. That's not sustainable. And he's unimpressed. And then you've got OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, who's now declaring a code red because Google, who kind of owns the search world, they have a monopoly on so many of these things. Google is right at their heels. This shit is not sustainable. The bubble is bubblicious, and it's a problem. They ain't going to make no more money. The bubble is a bubbling. And in addition to this form of make-believe wealth, there's also your make-believe poverty. Just because the wealthy people have make-believe money doesn't mean your poverty is real. Your poverty is also make-believe. Your broke is a hoax. That's what your president said. All your money problems are illusionary. They're just a delusion. You're colluding in delusion, and it don't really exist. And when it comes to being asked about affordability, Donald Trump had some things to say. He said, it's all in your mind. Are you smoking crack? Crack is whack. Ain't you hear what Whitney Houston had to say? That's not really what he said, but that's what he should have said because everything else he said was trash. I want you all to listen to Donald Trump as he's being asked about whether or not Americans are concerned about affordability. Take a listen to this man. And Jonah, let's play the clip.
Mr. President, thank you.
Yeah, Michelle. When you talk about affordability, is going forward, are the American people, do you believe, getting impatient with the reforms that you're making? They've talked about
I think they're getting fake news from guys like you. Look, affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats.
He said, you don't need affordability. Affordability doesn't exist. It's a hoax. Talk to your mom. He said it's a hoax. It doesn't matter. Now, it may not matter to him, and the numbers might be fake to him, but CNBC had some thoughts about this. CNBC just put out some of its latest jobs numbers. Jonah, let's get this clip together. This is a private, they're talking about ADP Payrolls, which is a private payroll company, because remember, what we don't get anymore is data about jobs numbers. We don't get any of that information anymore because your president is embarrassed about the jobs numbers. Remember how in COVID, he didn't want to count people who was getting COVID because he said if you don't count them, it don't matter. Remember when they had that ship of people who had COVID and they was like not letting the ship dock because Donald Trump didn't want all the people who had COVID on the ship coming into America because then he would have to add them to the COVID numbers. That man don't like math. He don't like value. He don't like profits. He don't like numbers. But what he do like is lying and playing in your face. Take a listen to what CNBC had to say about the reality of the jobs numbers, and it ain't good. Take a listen.
Hey, Joe, a big miss on the ADP payrolls. The private payroll company saying private payroll shed 32,000 workers in November. That's the fourth negative number in the past 6 months for this series. Take a look here. The estimate was for 40,000, so the street was off on this one. And how did you get there? Well, goods producing shed 19,000 workers, service producing shedding 13,000 workers. But the big story here, and I'll show you more detail on this, is what's happening with small business, down 120,000. Medium and large business doing okay, up 51 and 39,000 respectively. But take a look at this chart here. Virtually all of the job losses have come from small business, which has been negative in 6 of 7 months since April. Without those losses, ADP numbers would actually be positive. But you can't get rid of it. You can't exclude small business. And then you look at it by sector. Well, we've seen those two sectors do it. Education, health services, leisure, hospitality leading the way. But manufacturing down, information down, and professional business services down by 26,000. Also, another sign of weakness in the job market. Job stayers, their wages up 4.4. That's down a tenth from the prior month. And job changers, that was a big number, or had been. That's down 0.4 of a point to 6.3%. So, Joe, at least according to ADP, additional weakness in the job market. And small business getting hammered, and there is some information that some of this may be coming from being hammered by the tariffs.
Yeah. I think that's basic. That's some basic ass shit right there. But it's an illusion. You being broke is your fault. It's a hoax. Crack is whack. Broke is a hoax. Like, figure it out. Do something else. But don't complain to Donald Trump because he does not give a good goddamn. And he believes that he should get a pass. But nobody gets a pass on lying, especially when your lying is impacting the entire policy reality for the entire nation. You know who else doesn't get a pass? Admirals don't get a pass. No, you don't get a pass on murder if you have committed murder, Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley. Now, I just want to say, and I had this brother's picture up because I wanted to make sure that I showed who he was. Oh, did I lose it? Okay, no, here's Frank Bradley's picture. All right, now I'm going to show you all a picture of Alvin Halsey. Admiral Alvin Halsey. Admiral Alvin Halsey is the black man, from what I understand from one of the callers on this show, he's a Morehouse man. Admiral Alvin Halsey was the head of the U.S. Southern Command, which oversaw strikes on what the Trump administration would have claimed were, I almost said Brazilian, and then I combined it with Venezuelan drug boats. Remember that? This brother was 1 year into a 3-year term, and this brother, for some reason, earlier this year was like, yeah, I gotta go. Got multiple years left on this assignment. I gotta go. I'm good. I'm out. No worries. It's fine. Because this man, Frank Mitch Bradley, was then put in his position. Now, this is a part of what I was calling the impetus for my shift in terminology. And the reason I coined the phrase WEI, they replaced this black man, Alvin Halsey, the admiral, with this white man, Frank M. Bradley. Now, Frank M. Bradley is not from the community. He's not from our culture. Do with that information what you will. But I share that because this is another reminder that WEI-ness runs amok. And now Admiral Bradley, who is the white man who took over when the black Admiral Halsey, sorry, it's a lot of Mosleys, and admirals here. When the black man left, the white man took over. And when Donald Trump gave him an order to blow a ship out of the water, that was the first unlawful order. But then when Donald Trump said, you got to do it again because there's 2 people who have survived, that was the second unlawful order. Keep in mind, we're not at war. We're not at war. And I've been saying this is a war crime, but it felt uncomfortable. And I said, well, I mean, it's murder. That's where I started, by saying it's murder. But there's been this tension that we should call it a war crime. We should call it a murder. It's murder. And here's the interesting part is that why we should ask, what was the decision-making process here? When people had an opportunity, when they recognize, when you're watching this happen on camera, because Pete, his own mama said he's trash and a war criminal and a murderer, heck said, when he said this, when he was describing what's happening, he said he was watching it live. When you're in the Situation Room or on your Signal chat where someone's live streaming this very secure information unsecurely, when you're watching it and you see after the smoke clears that there are 2 people in the ocean clinging to whatever source of hope they could, hoping that they are now, maybe they did not knowing what had happened, stunned, I'm sure, shocked beyond belief, mourning in that instant because their comrades, whoever they were on that boat with, their cousin, their auntie, their uncle, whatever, is now gone, as they can visibly see gone. When you looked at these 2 people who were still floating in the water, what on earth would make you say we should kill them too? I struggled with that. And then I was listening to this clip from this group, and it's Joe and Cosima. I know I'm messing up her name. I apologize, Cosima. I apologize. But I want you all to take a listen to this because they're asking the same question. Why would you kill 2 people clinging to a piece of wood in the middle of the ocean? And then Cosima comes up with the answer. I want you all to take a listen to this. It's horrifying. Let's go.
Why would they fucking kill 2 defenseless survivors clinging to a tiny piece of wood like Kate Winslet?
You know why? You want to know why?
We know why. Please.
Because if those people were actually fishermen or somebody innocent that had nothing to do with drugs, they want to make sure they didn't have the opportunity to come back and say they bombed our boat for no fucking reason.
Yeah, it's evidence. Once you have people who are alive, who survived it, that's evidence, right? Now, they had done it before. There's other situations where there were people who were left, they were able to capture, and then they repatriated them back home, which means those people were not drug runners, because if they were drug runners, you would have arrested them. You did not do that. And I just need people to stop this whole effort. We're seeing a whole lot of folks who are trying to sanitize this whole thing, trying to say, well, it wasn't really Pete's fault. It was the Admiral. No. It wasn't the Admiral's fault. It was the Admiral. You committed murder, dog. Like, you a whole ass murder. And you didn't have to. We know you didn't have to because your black diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, right? The black man who was there before, who had to go through all the things you had to go through, but who was better than you, got to that position before you. When that black man recognized that these were the sorts of orders that were going to be coming, he left. You don't have to stay and do horrible things. And as an admiral who is now the person that your subordinates are looking to in the chain of command, when you do this, then what are you telling all the other soldiers? You had an obligation. You don't get to just commit murder and go. But you did commit murder. You committed murder for this guy. Now, Urban View, y'all, if you're not watching on YouTube, you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm sure you've probably heard about this so far. Donald Trump can't stay awake in his press conferences no more. Y'all's admiral committed murder for this guy who's sitting next to Marco Rubio, dead ass asleep, mumbling just a little bit, nodding every 10th word or so. This is who y'all committed murder for. And I'm saying y'all because it's the whole fucking administration. Take a listen.
War started, it never would have happened if you've been president.
Trump sleeping.
But this war is going on, and the president is trying to end it.
Eyes
not
closed.
because, listen, we got a million things to focus on in the world as a country.
Open.
But he's the
Closed
only
again.
leader in the world that can help end it. And that's why that's why even as we speak to you now,
Who
Steve
you speaking
Woodcock
to? He's
is
asleep.
in Moscow trying to find a way to end this war, to save lives of 9,000 people, Mr. President.
Here go Marco
you know,
looking
are
at
dying
Trump.
every
Trump
week.
sleep.
More people.
That's who you committed murder for. You committed murder for that guy. You committed murder for an administration that salivates over making poor people even more hungry. Listen at Brooke Rollins. She is the head of the Department of Agriculture. Listen to this is the type of people you committed murder for, dog. This is the type of people that you gave up your career for, you gave up your reputation for, and now you got to suck Trump's ass and hope that he gives you a partner so you ain't even in a position where you can actually speak honestly about this. Take a listen at Brooke Rollins and her trifling ass and what she basically is. This is who they committed murder for. Take a listen.
American taxpayer. As Joe Biden was working to buy an election a year ago, he increased food stamp program funding by 40%. So now as we continue to roll that back. So the partnership in Making America Healthy Again is also in food stamps, but a lot of what Bobby and I are doing together is really remarkable. But again, just gratitude and joy for this work, and so grateful to you. The final thing I'll say, a lot of gratitude to Secretary Marco Rubio for wearing his Aggie maroon tie as a reflection of Texas A&M beating Florida handily about a month ago. So, Marco, I want to thank you, and much gratitude and joy in my heart as well.
That's the type of folks they're committing murder for. People who, now, frankly, if Joe Biden wanted to buy an election, the last people he would have tried to help are the poor people. Poor people do not traditionally vote in high numbers. I'm just saying, if he was really trying to buy an election, he should have done what y'all did, which is give a whole lot of money and access and resources to the billionaire bros. But we're basically, and we're not going to have time to get to this to these clips today. We're in a situation where you're committing murder for people like Megyn Kelly, who is a radio host who basically said the following, quote, and I would play the clip, but it's disgusting. I play it on the podcast, but I don't even want to sully our airwaves together here with it. She basically said, I really do kind of not only want to see them get killed in the water, whether they're on the boat or in the water, but I'd really like to see them suffer. I would like Trump and Hegseth to make it last a long time so they lose a limb and bleed out. That's some sick shit. Like, that's some sick, psychopathic, sociopathic type shit. Like, if somebody said to you, just on a random day, I like to see people murdered and I want to see it last a long time. I want to see it dragged out for a really long time. That's some sick shit. But that's who you committed murder for, Admiral. Couldn't have been me. Couldn't have been a black. Not to say that black people are above committing war crimes. I mean, it happens. It happens. But the reality is this isn't a war crime. It's not a war crime at all. And I want us to be sure that we're correcting the language. This is the final clip I want to share with you all. This is Dr. Nola Haynes, who is an expert in this, in addition to being amazingly funny, hilarious, very, very kind, and gorgeous. She's got the best locks ever. But she, in her professional capacity, had some things to say to correct the record. And I am so grateful for this because I have been struggling with this idea of it's not really a war crime. We're not at war. And it's not me that said it. She confirmed it. I want you all to take a listen to Dr. Nola Haynes because she is right on the money on this one. Here it goes.
I teach a great deal on war, what constitutes war, specifically the theory of war. And what's interesting about this situation is the reason why I felt like I had to disrupt my social media vacay is because I kept seeing people refer to this as a war crime. That is a way to describe it if you're trying to get people to understand the level of severity. Is it the right way to describe it? If my students were to answer, if I were to give them this as a case study and say, how would you describe it? And if they said war crime, I would dock them points. And it's a really simple reason why. No one has declared war, not even Venezuela. And it's a reason for that because wars cost money. Maduro understands that he's in a tricky situation, and he also understands what sort of administration he's dealing with. So he's in a very tricky situation. So he hasn't declared war. And to my knowledge, sitting here at 2:07 p.m., December 1st, the United States has not declared war on Venezuela. So to call this a war crime is to suggest that this is a legal war, that this is a legal war and or conflict, and it is neither.
It ain't none of that.
Yes.
It ain't none of that. It's a whole ass lie, which means they're murderers. They're not even war criminals yet. They couldn't even crime right. They're murderers. And every single one of you who are enlisted, every single one of the officers, every single one of those of you who are upper level personnel who decided to go along with this, fuck you. And you deserve every horrible, awful thing that could possibly come your way. You killed people and you don't even know their names. You don't even, you disgust me. In any event, we got to go. Urban View YouTube, we appreciate y'all. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. And thank you so much for being a part of this experience. Hold on.